Hey everyone, Couch Investor back to another video for today. Yes, a different setup. We're going to be like this for another week or so. If you don't know where I am, well, upper left corner of your screen. Now in this video, we're going to go over Square or Block's earnings report. They did miss a little bit on non-GAAP earnings per share estimates. They beat revenue estimates by around $60 million. At the time of making this video, the stock is up around 4%. Of course, that might change when you're watching this video. Now, with regards to Block, you know me, we've been following this company for a long time. I like the ecosystem. Sometimes execution is lacking there. Maybe it's because of leadership. You all know my thoughts when it comes to Jack Dorsey. I don't think he's suitable to be CEO, but hey, that's just the way things are right now. Now, for this quarter, there are some interesting metrics that they did not show us before. I always like when there are some new metrics that they add in the earnings report, but when they remove some, that's where things get a little bit tricky. But overall, things were okay for me this quarter. Outlook when it comes to profitability, still not that great, let's say. But we're going to have a look at all this earnings report in just a second. If you enjoy this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not, and if you want to support me even further, do check out the link down in the description and in the pinned comment to get the top 10 best stocks to buy now, or go to fool.com/couchinvestor. Alright, so let's start with the Q4 highlights and then the 2022 highlights. So basically, gross profit still growing quite nicely year over year, 40%, an increase of 40% year over year, reaching now $1.66 billion. Net income is a loss. It has increased from last quarter. This has never been really that stable. Again, from profitability standpoint, it's still an issue. I guess we're now at a loss of $114 million for this quarter. When we're looking at Square gross profit, that grew 22% year over year to reach $801 million. They're not giving us the 3-year CAGRs anymore. Cash App gross profit increased 64% year over year to $848 million. Then adjusted EBITDA is a bit less than last quarter, but we're reaching $281 million, which is obviously a big increase year over year, 53%. Now, when we're looking at the full year, we can see that gross profit grew 36% year over year, close to $6 billion. Net loss here, again, same thing. Overall, of course, we know what happened in 2022. That's no surprises there. Hopefully the comparisons for 2023 will make it a bit easier. So right now for the full year, net income loss of $541 million. When we look at Square gross profit, that grew 30% year over year to $3 billion. Cash App gross profit grew 43% year over year to $2.95 billion, and adjusted EBITDA short of $1 billion here actually, but it is down 2%. Now, when it comes to gross profit specifically for the quarter and for the full year, they do give us here on this side some comparison from each and every segment. So Block, Square, Cash App, and then also excluding the buy now, pay later platform, which was Afterpay, which will now obviously lap the year of the acquisition. Then here they do give us the 3-year CAGR. So if you're interested in that, you can pause the screen right now. Moving on, we're reaching new graphs that were never given before. So they say here retention improves with larger sellers and greater product adoption. Basically, when you look at SMB, if you're adopting 4 products, you're 8 times less likely or more likely to stay with them. With mid-markets, 15 times more. So obviously, the more products you adopt, the stickier the platform is. Then when it comes to Square GPV mix by seller side, this has now reached $48.6 billion. Again, we can see that the larger segment here is increased quite nicely year over year. Overall, the percent mid-market sellers is 39%. Now, when it comes to gross profit in markets outside of the United States, I believe last quarter we were at around 12%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but now we're at 17% of Square gross profit. We're at $139 million. This is very nice. I always talked about growing outside of the United States, whether it's Europe, Australia, or even Japan. So to see this number now increase is a big positive to me, because this is a big aspect of the bull thesis for Block, or the future of Block. Then when it comes to the Cash App and Cash Cart, we also have some new information there. So they say here during December 2022, Cash App had 51 million monthly transacting actives, an increase of 16% year over year. the acquisition cost remained stable in 2022 at $10 or less on average to acquire a new transacting active with strong returns on acquisition spend. So that's great to hear. We don't always get these numbers, so it's always nice when we do get them. Then when it comes to Cash App Card, so that delivered strong growth over the past year, generating more than $750 million in gross profit during 2022. That's up 56% year over year from transactions on the card alone. And you can obviously see here the increased Cash App Card gross profit as a percentage of total, the increase from 24% to 26% in 2022. Then overall, Cash App Card gross profit is, well, obviously growing year over year quite nicely. They say here Cash App Card is a key driver of increased inflows as Cash App Card actives brought 2 times the amount of inflows into Cash App compared to peer-to-peer actives in the fourth quarter. So again, a great momentum driver for the business. Now, when it comes to revenue, so total revenue was $4.65 billion in this quarter. That's up 14%. You exclude Bitcoin, that was $2.82 billion and up 33% year over year. Now, for the full year, there is a drop here, but there is an explanation. So for the full year 2022, total net revenue was $17.53 billion, down 1% year over year. But if you exclude Bitcoin revenue for the full year was up 36% year over year. So again, I'm not looking at this business when it comes to Bitcoin. This is really irrelevant here. So again, Bitcoin gross profit was just 2% of Bitcoin revenue. So they're not really making any money on that. Then moving on to the Square ecosystem revenue and gross profit. So in the fourth quarter, Square generated $1.76 billion of revenue and $801 million of gross profit. That's up 19 and 22% year over year respectively. For the full year, Square generated $6.7 billion of revenue and $3 billion of gross profit, up 29 and 30% year over year respectively. As you can see right here, Square GPV, yes, it is down quarter over quarter, but year over year, we're up around 14%. And they do say here that, well, we're lapping a quarter that already saw 45% year over year growth. Then another new representation here. So gross profit by annual Square cohort. So of course, it's always nice to see that a cohort keeps on growing each and every year. Right now, 2022 one is about the size of 2021. And you can see the year over year increase of that cohort. Let's see if the same will happen for the 2022 one. Now, as we continue, we can see the same thing here. Well, not the same thing, but for the first time, another new representation here. So Square return on investment on the left, and on the bottom, the quarters after joining. Fortunately, I don't really know which color is what, but overall, you can clearly see the trend here. Things are increasing pretty fast. So the return on investment is pretty good. Now, when it comes to the Cash App ecosystem, so for the full year of 2022, Cash App generated $10.63 billion of revenue and $2.95 billion of gross profit. That's down 14 and up 43% year over year, respectively. Now, they do say here the year over year decline in revenue was driven by a decrease in the total amount of Bitcoin sold to customers, which we recognize as Bitcoin revenue, and Bitcoin gross profit was 2% of Bitcoin revenue in the quarter. So again, yes, it's a decrease, but if it's a decrease because of the Bitcoin side, I don't really care much about that. Now on the side here, we see Cash App inflows, nice increase quarter over quarter, 20% increase year over a quarter that grew 35%. So pretty positive there. Here we also get the cohort representation, so gross profit by annual Cash App cohort. Clearly see that 2022 is trending quite nicely. Up next, we have the Cash App business. So Cash App business for the fourth quarter, GPV there was $4.55 billion. That's up 20% year over year. For the full year, Cash App business GPV was $17.07 billion, up 14% year over year. And Cash App transaction-based revenue was $466 million, up 14% year over year as well. We can obviously see here a new visual representation, and here you can clearly see a nice rapid growth, well, return on investment since someone is joining. Now they do say here that Cash App generated $901 million of subscription and services based revenue during the fourth quarter of 2022. That's up 85% year over year. Now, when it comes to the balance sheet and cash flow, pretty positive there, pretty solid. We ended the fourth quarter of 2022 with $7.5 billion in available liquidity and $6.9 billion in cash, cash equivalents, restricted cash, and investments in marketable securities, as well as $600 million available to withdraw from the revolving credit facility. And they say here that in the fourth quarter of 2022, adjusted EBITDA contributed positively to the overall liquidity. Now, looking at the outlook, there are trends that they're seeing here. So for January plus February 2023, year-over-year growth when it comes to Block gross profit, that's up 33%. For Block combined with company gross profit, that's up 25%. With regards to non-GAAP operating expenses, they expect $1.43 billion in Q1 2023, a $30 million quarter-over-quarter increase. And then as for the 2023 outlook, adjusted EBITDA of $1.3 billion, adjusted operating income loss, again for the full year here, $150 million. Now, just an FYI here on the balance sheet as asset, you have here goodwill. So obviously now with the Afterpay acquisition, you can see a huge increase here, almost $12 billion in goodwill. Take this into consideration. And then of course, share-based compensation. Since 2020, this has increased, well, this has more than doubled. And so to conclude, look, it was an okay quarter, not an exceptional quarter, not an exceptional outlook. They still need to do a lot of things to become more and more profitable. That's probably something that they should address in 2023. I know they are not like other big tech companies that have a lot of layoffs that are cutting costs heavily. Maybe that will change throughout 2023, remains to be seen. But overall, the business is still solid, is still doing great. Does this mean that I'm currently going to add heavily to my position? No. I do want to see a bit more profitability, maybe some cost cuts somewhere, I don't know. But this is what I'm waiting for. Right now, my size for this type of company in my portfolio is reasonable. That's why I'm not going to add currently. Of course, that might change during the next couple of months. I'll keep you all updated. Do share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.